Hello there, and welcome to the CP7 podcast. My name's Palm.
And I'm Andy.
And together, we are Chrono Passion 7. Hello, and welcome back to your favourite watch-related podcast, free and independent, where passion is our middle name. We've got a guest today, the senior designer from Christopher Ward. We want to welcome Will Brackfield to our show. Welcome, Will.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
Hi, Will. How are you doing? A pleasure to have you on the show. We have a lot of burning questions around the new Sealander, but before we get into that, the famous old question we have to ask is what you're wearing today. What's on the wrist?
Okay, so I'm wearing a 660 prototype. It doesn't actually work. It's got a movement in it, the original Sealander 210 from when we did the 595. And we basically we got the very first case we got, the very first dial and the bracelet, and kind of put it all together. None of the finishing matches. As I say, it doesn't work, but sometimes I just wear it because I really like the profile of it and I don't actually have a real one. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing.
You helped design it, obviously.
That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is a 12, right? That's in the 12 range, is that right?
Yeah, the 12660.
Oh, the
so it's the very slim 6.6 millimeters thick, hand winding, two hands, 38 mil. Yeah.
Okay, very nice.
Very nice. And Palm, over to you. What's on the wrist?
Well, I've got a watch which isn't slim, it's not small. My Breitling Navitimer A23322, 43 mil. I've been wearing this for the last few days, and it's something that isn't coming off my wrist. It's a reverse panda, black dial, and I've got it on this nice leather strap, but embossed with an alligator pattern. So, yeah, that's what I've got on my wrist, the old trusty Navitimer, which I've not worn for a while, but it's been on my wrist the last few days.
Nice.
Andy, how about yourself? Surprise us.
I'm with my little vacation watch. So I say vacation watch, the watch which I chose for a recent vacation, which is a vintage Zenith DeFi with a nice champagne dial from the 70s, the OG.
Ah, very nice.
As they call the safe vault or something like that for the movement. It's a fancy French word which I can't pronounce, but basically it translates to that in English. But a very robust watch for the era it was made, and some innovation with like a rubber gasket really what suspends the movement and helps prevent some shock. If that still works or not, I don't know, but it's keeping good time at the moment, and it's on the original gay phrase bracelet, which is good for the Barcelona climate. So that's what I've been rocking recently and today.
Awesome. Very, very nice. I haven't seen that one, but I'm sure I will in due course. So, Will, just give us a bit of a quick background on your being a designer at Christopher Ward and a bit about yourself.
Sure. I studied industrial design at university. Kind of didn't know what I wanted to do after university. Had always been interested in watches and actually got into watches through history. So I was kind of big into World War I and World War II. From that, really got into the Dirty Dozen field watches. I knew nothing about watches at that point. I just thought it was really cool story. And kind of that's how I got into watches as an interest. And then I kind of finished my studies, worked for a startup for a while, did a few other things. Never thought I could design watches because in the UK, there isn't many watch designers, or at least there wasn't back in 2015 when I graduated. Really, there was only 3 kind of major watch companies in the UK. And I knew each of them had 1, maybe 2 designers each. So didn't think it was a thing that I could do. But then eventually saw that Christopher Ward had a job up for grabs. Yeah, interviewed for that, met Adrian Bushman, who's the head designer at the time. Started design watches in 2019 and have done it ever since.
Awesome. What were the 3 brands? Sorry, I'm adding to what I was going to ask in the first place, but you said there were only 3 British brands, really. It was Christopher Ward, and who were the other 2 then?
3 that I kind of knew about and were kind of big enough. So in my head, it was Christopher Ward, Bremont, and Ferro.
Ah.
Those 3 were the kind of the bigger ones. I think obviously Fears were starting around that time. Well, restarting around that time. He would kill me for saying starting.
Yeah.
Restarting. And then obviously now the British watch industry is completely different. There's so many. Obviously Roger was doing his thing too, but that's kind of different.
Yeah, okay. Going back to your journey, 2019, it ties into my first question very nicely. So you've been designing watches at Christopher Ward since 2019, and the Sealander is the most popular watch you've made, I believe. So what led you to redesigning the range when it's so popular? And there must have been quite a few highlights and challenges during that reinvention process. Could you just talk us through that, please?
In general, we like to kind of refresh ranges every 4 or 5 years. So We did it with the Trident. The Trident 3 was launched, actually, the week I started, the Trident 3 was launched. And then we redesigned it as the Pro 300 2 years ago, I believe. And so kind of like every 5 years, we like to refresh the major lines. And the Sealander was coming up to that time frame, and it also felt like the rest of the range had moved on slightly. Things like we'd introduced the Bel Canto, the Aventurine Moon phase, the Loco, and it felt like the Sealander was kind of lagging behind everything else. Sales were still extremely good on it, which is a challenge in itself because there's a major chance you mess it up and people go from liking a watch to not liking it at all, which luckily didn't happen, but it was a worry. We just kept noticing more and more things with it that we knew we could improve. And so, it kind of felt like time.
Okay, so periodic refresh. That's a good way to incrementally improve as well. Something that we spoke to Roger Smith about once as well. Yeah, it's a good way to do things, definitely.
And I think it kind of shows the maturity of Christopher Ward as a brand now. Whereas at the start of Christopher Ward, it was a lot of jumping around, trying different things, seeing where the niche was. And now it's matured as a brand and it's got those core lines, being a bit more consistent and focusing on things like quality and small incremental changes on the baselines. And then for the things like Bel Canto and the higher end lines, still experimenting and kind of pushing things further in that sense. We kind of didn't jump into it too quickly, the Sealander redesign, because we were very conscious that we didn't want to change too much. We wanted to improve what we already had rather than take away from it. We did a survey before we even started with the Christopher Ward forum to ask what they would like to see. We did a similar thing when we did the Trident Pro 300. Luckily, the feedback we got was very much in line with what we were thinking, and it was refinement, not reinvention. So the general feedback was, we love it, but there's a few things that we would like tweaking, let's say. So then from there, we kind of started, and none of it is the same. Like, there is no component that is the same between the previous one and the new one, but it still is very much related.
The DNA is still there, right?
Yeah.
I think it leads nicely into one of my first questions, and really it echoes back to the initial success of the Sealander. I think it's safe to say the category of which it resides within is quite competitive of that landscape, right? If we're saying like the everyday sports watch category, especially at the price point. What would you say was the initial success for the Sealander doing so well in that space? And when redesigning, what did you feel you needed to add to the Sealander to make it stand apart from that crowded space?
The original success was the fact that Christopher Ward didn't really have anything in that vein. And actually, every year we will sit down and kind of have a meeting and talk about what we want to do for the next year or 2 years and kind of discuss where we think the gaps in the range are. And when we were doing it for the Sealander, it was one of those moments where you think, why haven't we discussed this before? It's the very, very obvious thing to do, have a three-handed sports everyday watch. But yeah, we'd never really done it before. There'd been forays into it years and years ago, but it was never a core line. So that was kind of why we decided to do it. And I think it was the fact that we hadn't done it before was part of the success, the fact that the Trident was already very successful, and actually the original Sealander design was basically just a Trident with a fixed bezel. There wasn't a huge amount of changes in terms of the dial and the case. So I think there was kind of some follow over there. And obviously, as you said, it's a very crowded category, but it's also a very popular category. And it's kind of the watch that people buy first. And when people are trying to get into watches, they want something that's kind of safe and they can wear doing whatever they want, because they're probably hoping they don't become addicted to watches and buy 10 or 20 different ones. They're hoping they can only have one. But
yeah, we can all hope.
That doesn't happen.
It's never the case.
And also, Christopher Ward are we've always been the first brands that people look at when they're trying to get into watches. I think the accessibility of the price points and the overall quality of the watches appeals to people that are just kind of getting into it. So I think all of those things combined meant that, the Sealander was a huge success from day one, which is really good.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Nicely flowing into our questions here. There, thanks for that, Will. You're our favourite guest ever. Okay, so what I was going to ask you was, I remember sitting down with Mike France at the 2021 Watch Pro Salon in London, and I believe that's when the Sealander had been launched that year. It's probably a few months earlier or round about that time it had just been launched, along with the C60 concept, I think, that you made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the skeleton eye is a really cool watch. He was very excited about the Sealander, but spoke with his very honest and open approach rather than... One thing about Mike is he's very down to earth, and his feet are firmly on the ground, but he is a visionary as well with that, which is a great thing. Back then, was the general feeling in Christopher Ward that it would be as popular as it is today? Was it like, okay, this is it, this is going to be the watch that not defines us, but this is going to be our bestseller, this is why we're doing it?
Well, that was the reason we did it to start with, and that was always the hope. But you never know. You can love a watch and before you launch it and think you've done everything right, and then you launch it and it just doesn't get the traction you think. That was always the hope, and it was part of the reason we did it was the fact that Trident was becoming such a large part of our collection, and we didn't want Christopher Ward to just be Trident. So we wanted to kind of diversify the collection. And we got lucky. It went well.
By chance. It seemed like an obvious move, but I think at the time I didn't realise how big a move it was, because I remember talking to him about it, and there was Instagram posts, and there was a bit of a fervour, because Christopher Ward has always had an underground kind of following back in the day, from back then, and now it's obviously exploded into a global following. Yeah, it seemed to kind of creep up on us. So what are your feelings today now compared to when you launched it? So when you launched it, it's a bit of a, not a gamble, but we're trying this. But now, how do you feel about it today? What are the feelings of yourself and Christopher Ward in general on the Sealander?
I think we're super proud of it. I think we were able to grow the collection into other avenues as well. We did things like the Elite, which was the very, very sporty version, and the June was also kind of came from it. It's obviously part of the Aquitaine collection, but it probably wouldn't have happened if the Sealander didn't happen. So it's offered a lot of things to the brand. And I think, we're super proud of it and pleased we could refine it and do a new version.
Okay, awesome.
One little tidbit on the C60 concept.
Yeah, we love tidbits. Go on.
That kind of case. Sorry, I just you mentioned it, and I realised I'd not really told anyone this before, and I thought it might be fun. But the C60 concept actually came out of a bit of a late night design session on a completely different watch that we were trying to do. We were trying to get into glow. So like, obviously now we've got the Lumiere's lines, and glow is kind of one of our signatures, or we've tried to make it one of our signatures. At the time, that's something we were trying to do. So we were trying to design this glowing C60 Trident, and it just kind of wasn't working. And we had this deadline, and we were kind of working late into the evening and came up with this really out there weird design that we presented to Mike, who said, "This is a bit weird, isn't it, guys? This isn't really what you're going to do," which then ended up being transformed into the C60 with a lot of changes. But actually that watch wasn't planned, and it came out of a very strange design that got pared back. But often that happens when you're designing things. You do the safe options, and then you do the crazy options that no one would ever pick. And then you take a few things from the crazy one and put it into the more safe one, and you find this middle ground. And I think that's kind of what one of the fun parts about design is, seeing how far you can push it and seeing what people will agree to.
So really pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, I know it's not Sealander related at all.
But it's up to you. You're the guest. You're in our house.
No, it's a nice Easter egg. Yeah, it's perfect. Reflecting a bit more on the Sealander, leading into my next question would be, if we're comparing to the first generation, and I think I already know the answer to this, but I'll ask a question in a sense. There's obviously some noticeable changes, right, in the second generation, like the Trident's gone off the second hand, which was somewhat controversial. Some people liked it, some people didn't. So curious of what was the final decision process on that being absent now. Then if we look at the C63 automatic, it's gone to more of a sleeker profile, which is something I definitely appreciate. The crown guards are now absent. It feels like the C63 automatic has taken a more kind of dressy approach to the collection, as when you look to the GMT is a beefier size option now at 42 millimeter. You have the crown guards remaining there, so it feels like that's still very much the tool watch segment of the Sealander. Just curious to what drove those design decisions and driving those watches down those certain routes.
It was very much confidence in the second round of design. So actually, the reason that the first one was, they were very similar, the auto and the GMT, and actually the automatic was thicker, is we really weren't sure which one was going to sell better. the Auto or the GMT. When you order cases are one of the more capital intensive things to order and buy. You have to buy in large quantities. And because we weren't sure which one would be best, we decided to use the same mid case for both the GMT and the automatic. So you end up kind of compromising on thickness a little bit, especially on the automatic, because of hand heights and all sorts of other things. So that's how we were able to take this new Sealander or the automatic specifically and thin it down, because now obviously it's been proven that both sell really well. So actually there was no need to worry in the first place, but we didn't know that at the time. So we were able to make the cases completely bespoke to each model. And then it was something that Jorg, who's our product director, I think is his title, making the automatic more dressy, doing things like add the fully polished bezel, refining it a little bit more that way, and then keeping the GMT more sporty and going even bolder with the design language. So taking the numbers around off the edge of the dial, making the markers themselves more bold, and in turn keeping the crown guards on the GMT.
Did a lot of that come down to like you said, you did some community voting? So like going back to the Trident on the second stand, was that down to that, or was a vote for that to go or stay, or was it just like...
I don't actually remember if that's something we had asked. It's something we decided very, very early on. If it didn't agree with us, we probably would have ignored it anyway. It was just purely because we wanted to completely take it away from Trident. And at this point, we'd slowly been moving away from the Trident second hand on other lines anyway. So things like the 12 now had the Trident, and we decided it's very much for the Trident line and it will stay there on the watches. But yeah, it's not necessarily a Christopher Ward.
Cool. Perfect answer. Personally, I think going those two options as well, having that dressier kind of piece works very well. So you've got two options really. If you want to go full on sports, go for the GMT. If you want something a bit everyday, formal / casual, then you've got the automatic. So I think it works very well.
Yeah, nice watches. I mean, I did get hands-on with them at your boutique in Mayfair, your new boutique in Mayfair, new showroom in Mayfair.
I'm going to make a quick confession. I've never handled a Christopher Ward. I was thinking about it today. Prior to this interview, I've not actually physically... No, never. Not at a London event, and I've not seen many around Barcelona. I'm sure it's collectors like in the Red Bar group here, but I've just not had a hands-on yet.
I think you need to ask Patrick.
Yeah.
If he can send you one for a little review.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to, because I heard a lot of great things about them. The closest I've been is Ricky from Scottish Watches. He had the loco on, and I saw it on his wrist, but I didn't manage to steal it off his wrist because ships in the night would just pass very quickly. But no, it's something I'll definitely change this year. But yeah, it's a curious thing.
I'll try and convince Mike to open a new showroom in Barcelona for you.
Yeah,
you could do it in the Camp Nou.
There we go. That's the way to convince them. Link it to some kind of football thing, exactly. And you're golden.
It'd be done. Yeah, I run the Red Bar here, so we can set something up definitely, because I think it's a missed audience.
Yeah, definitely.
Possibly.
I think so. Right. Okay. In terms of redevelopment of the Sealander, you mentioned every 5 years you like to refresh your range. Do you see that happening continually for the Sealander? Are you going to try and change it even more? Would we see future updates like in-house movements and possibly a true GMT function like you've put in your latest watch, your latest creation? Or would that take away from the Sealander and its kind of positioning in the market and what it represents for Christopher Ward?
No, I think there's always opportunities to do that kind of thing. I felt it was right. Obviously, you mentioned the true GMT that came out recently, which is in the Sealander case. It's obviously a modified Sealander case. We don't necessarily think of Sealander as only like the entry level. There's real opportunities to do all sorts with it. We're always open to it. And we will, of course, be adding new things to the line incrementally. I guess in probably 5 years, we'll do another update. As long as people are still buying it.
How's the uptake been on the new one? It's been very recently since it's released, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
How's it been?
Very, very good. Better than we'd hoped, which is a relief.
Oh, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a really good thing. And just one thing I want to add on, just the new ones, the dial colours. Did you have a sky blue before? Because there's one now. That was my favourite one.
We had a sky blue on the GMT. I don't think we had one on the Auto.
Okay. And then the pistachio, that's a brand new one.
That's brand new, yeah.
And the black and white, obviously, they're your staples. They're the OGs. And there's also a pink, which is only on the time only. 30, is that on the 39 or 36? What size? 36, yeah.
So that's we had a pink on the previous version. It was a softer pink, almost silver. Whereas this one is obviously going from the previous Sealanders. We kind of changed the dial finishes throughout its lifetime of the V1. So they started with lacquer and then they moved to more sunray, and now we've gone back to lacquer on this new version. And colours are always rendered slightly differently depending on the dial finishes. So you always end up with something that feels a little bit more saturated on polished lacquer. The pinks are kind of a bit more punchy on these new ones than the previous one.
And choosing the colours, what inspired? Because the pistachio is very Oyster Perpetual. Was it inspired by that, as in because it's a popular colour on that watch?
Yeah, I think pastels in general are quite popular at the moment as a colour palette. And Sealander's always been the range that we experiment with colours on. We hadn't really done too much of that in other ranges, so we wanted to kind of give it a go and see how it went. Pistachio has been a runaway success in terms of the split of sales. Obviously, black and white are always going to be very good because, as I mentioned earlier, that this is the first watch people buy. The first watch people buy isn't usually green or pink,
no,
or blue. But pistachio has been by far the number one in the auto. For now, I think over time it will kind of flatten out a little bit, but it's been very popular. And I think the plan is to continue having Sealander as a colour vehicle, as Mike likes to call it, and just a way to experiment with colour and finish and that kind of thing on the dial. As the case is quite simple and the bracelet is again quite simple, it kind of leaves a lot of things you can do on the dial and not overcomplicate things.
When I came and saw the watches, I was wearing the sky blue. I thought this is my favourite. And then when I went away, the pistachio was kind of sort of playing on my mind. I thought, because it's so different. Pistachio generally isn't, like you say, the first coloured dial you would buy. If you do, you're an enthusiast and you like to mix it up a bit. If I was going to consider buying one, I'd definitely get the pistachio now, I think, because it's just so different. It's just, for a GMT, you don't see it. Maybe for a time only, yes, you would see that. But for a GMT, that's very, very unique. So I like the way you did that.
It was meant to be just the auto to start with. We get kind of lots of different samples along the way. So you end up you get dial plates first. So they're just basically clean dials with a stamping in the middle and the color that you're going to have. So that the lacquer finish. And then it moves on to full dials, and the full dials then get assembled into a full case, and it kind of goes like that. But when we saw the first initial dial stampings in the pistachio, I think it was very clear that it was something different, and it was something quite fun for us. And that's why it then got moved into the GMT also, because we saw it and loved it as well.
Yeah, good move. Definitely a good move.
It's interesting because we were saying it's kind of your first watch range, right? The everyday daily wearer sports watch. But yet the best-selling colour is the one what a new watch person maybe wouldn't buy. So who's the demographic? Is it people with collections already, or is there a shift in in purchasing habits?
If I was to guess, it was often when the more out there colour is the one that is the bestseller for maybe the first month. And then you see the kind of the more general customer that is just looking for a watch kind of picks back up.
Yeah.
And that's when things even out a little bit. So we're still in that kind of honeymoon phase of it's the collectors, it's the enthusiasts that want the new version.
It levels out with the blacks and
over time it usually goes back.
No, it's interesting. I think moving it now to maybe more of a personal question to yourself. You've been in with Christopher Ward for some time now. You've been behind some fascinating and great projects, such as the 12, the Bel Canto, the Sealander, of course. Is there a particular project what is your baby, the one which you love the most? And is there any what feel quite personal to you? Which is your favourite project to date, which you've worked on? Which is maybe a horrible question.
No, I get asked it quite a lot, actually. So I have two. The first and probably the most obvious one is the Bel Canto. So that was kind of the watch that changed a lot of things at Christopher Ward. And it was something that we worked on for so long, and to have it make such an impact. And people that don't know, my neighbour who was in her 80s and has no idea about watches saw an advert for it and started talking to me about this watch. And she has no interest in watches, and that kind of, it felt like a very big deal. And none of us had really experienced that before at Christopher Ward at all. And so that was kind of a big moment for everyone. So that's the first one. And then the second one is actually the super compressor from a while ago. And that was one of my first bigger projects. So it wasn't the first watch I designed for Christopher Ward, but it was, it must have been within the first 5. And it was kind of the one where I got let loose a little bit. And so the design process kind of works. So we go away, we kind of experiment with things, and we end up having kind of probably 3 to 5 different directions, which we then present to Mike. And Mike's very much involved in the product side of things, and he loves the product and he gets very excited about it, and we kind of have a back and forth. And so I had gone away and had these different directions and presented it to Mike, and the response I got back was not great. And he was like, this doesn't really feel right. I think we need to go and start again and try again. Why don't you come back with one single design? So no colors, no different variants, nothing. Come to me with one page with one design. And of course, that's the most terrifying thing you can hear as a designer. And so kind of I went away and kind of really worked on it and presented the design, and it went a lot better the second time. And it eventually was what became the super compressor. So I think that's why that's my second one. After that one, I felt like I could do it. Yeah, that's why that one's special to me.
That one's where you put your full character, personality, full creativity into, right?
Exactly.
It must have been scary when he turned down the initial designs.
Yeah. It was
come back to me with one. It's like, oh,
what the hell?
But what do I do?
Oh dear.
Yeah, but you did it, so that's the main thing. Yeah,
exactly. And I was quite early in Christopher Ward in general as well. So it's like, oh no, what happens if I come back and it's this next one he doesn't like?
Actually, that's interesting, because that was from back in the day, that was my favourite Christopher Ward, with the blue dial and the orange and white accents, right? Yeah, that was actually for a long time.
Yeah.
I think the Bel Canto came out after that, and I was thinking another one you worked on. Good. I'm glad that you designed that, because I get to speak to the man who actually designed the watch that I really like. So that's really cool. You mentioned a few design process activities that you do. How does it work at Christopher Ward then? You're the senior designer. Do you oversee a team of designers? If so, how many are there? And then how does the design process, like you're designing a alternative to the super compressor, what would the process be for yourself as a watch designer? I mean, you're the first watch designer we've had on the show, so it'd be very interesting for ourselves and our listeners to actually just hear about what that entails and what you have to go through and what you do.
Cool. Okay, so I'll start maybe talking about how Christopher Ward works. So me and Adrian are both more senior designers at Christopher Ward, and then we have some junior designers, Matt and Michele, and we kind of all work on separate projects but help each other out. For Matt and Michele, it's very much a back and forth with them, and we kind of let them go away and suggest options, and we give feedback and that kind of thing. We don't necessarily sit them down and say, you have to do exactly, obviously we have briefs for projects and that kind of thing. I know I've spoken to some other designers where it's like they get to design the hands and they get told exactly what to do and they just have to execute it, basically. That's kind of not at all what it's like in Christopher Ward. You very much have a lot of scope to do what you want and argue for your chosen designs. And I think that's very unique. And it's something Mike's been really, really good at, actually, letting us explore. And he will, if you're willing to really argue for something, and he's not he will go with you, which I think is really refreshing. And also that's the reason why things like the Bel Canto happen, because of that exploration. And that's definitely something I enjoy about Christopher Ward, being able to feel like you're making a bit of a difference in terms of the design. And in terms of my process, it's very much to start with. So there's a design team and there's a product management team. So the product managers do things like they kind of do market research and they write briefs for projects, and we're all involved on deciding where to go with the collection. And they'll come to us with a brief. I'll go away and I'll do a lot of drawings. So at the start, I do very rough drawings that I would never show to anyone because they're horrible, but just to get ideas out of my head. And actually, for me, it's people like to portray designers as kind of sitting there and having this magic moment where it comes to them and it's all beautiful and it's great. It's not like that. Basically, you just design a load of stuff And there's one good thing in about 100 different designs, and the skill is picking the one good thing. And so there's so much stuff that gets disregarded. Then I'll take those kind of sketches and refine the ones I like a little bit more, and have something that I can show to other people, and create 2D mock-ups. So we use Illustrator a lot for like in the early stages, basically to be able to show finishes and colors and do things quite quickly in 2D. And then we'll present it to Mike often in that form, or do a bit of 3D work. So if the case is particularly different to things we've done before, so like when we were doing the 12, we came to him with 3D prints of cases and that kind of things. And we'll discuss with Mike and see if it's the right direction, what needs changing and that kind of thing. From there, we'll make more refinements, create documents to send to suppliers, and it takes about 3 to 4 months to start getting bits of samples back. So hands or dials or first runs of cases. And then it all kind of gets assembled. We see the range usually and discuss it as a team and decide what's good, what's bad, if we need to change anything, and how we're going to kind of launch it. And then that's when it gets passed over to marketing, and we explain to them the product and the thinking behind the product. And then they go away and they create the marketing campaigns, and then the watch gets launched. So,
sorry, Will, that's quite a few stages you've said there. Is there scope at any of those stages to write, no, we don't want this, and then you just start again?
I've had many prototypes. I'd say many. That's maybe exaggerating a little bit, but I have had projects where they have gone to the very end of just before, like we've had samples and people have liked it, and we've just decided there was something that wasn't quite right, or the market wasn't quite right at the time, and then it gets stopped. And then the prototypes sit in we've got like sample drawers in the office, and they'll sit in there, and you'll open it up and you go, oh, I did like that. And then you'll kind of bring it back out, and there's a watch that's actually coming out on in the new Sealander range that was done for the previous Sealander, that was one of those where it got right until the end, and we just felt like it was missing something. It wasn't quite special enough on that previous design, and we kind of found a way to amplify it and bring it up to the standard that we want for this kind of second version of the Sealander. So yeah, it can get, you can invest a lot of time and money into these things, but there's no point launching something that people don't think's right.
You need the 100% on it, don't you?
You'd rather kill it before than order a load of stock.
It can be a lot worse further down.
Yeah, exactly. It's painful because you put a lot of time and energy into it, but it's almost always the right decision. If someone's got just a sneaking suspicion that maybe it's not going to do what we want it to do, or maybe it's not the right time, they're often right.
This is a really interesting point, I think. So you have revisited old designs and looked at them again and thought, oh, okay, no, actually, let's try this now.
Yeah, that happens all the time. So
okay, interesting.
I'm trying to think of a good example of something that's come out. The Aventurine moon phase was something that we had for ages. We were looking for a way to do another colour of the moon phase, because the moon glow was super popular, and like it never felt right to do. We had the black, but then white is a bit weird with it's a moon phase. Why would it be white? And we were kind of looking for a different way of doing it, and we had tried with Aventurine previously on different things, but not quite in the same execution as the moon phase. And actually, we'd had that 3 or 4 times. We'd kind of looked at ways to do it, and it kind of got shut back down. And then this last time, it was like, okay, well, why don't we try it? And it just all seemed to come together. And now the moon phases in Aventurine is one of our most popular single ski watches in the entire range. So it's funny that something that didn't feel like it was quite good enough, when its time came, it became something that was...
It all fell into place. Right. Everything fell into place, and it's a beautiful watch. I've got to say, that's another thing. I don't know if was that one of yours?
There's not a huge amount of design in that. It's take stuff away, delete things.
It looks good.
Make it sound easy.
Yeah.
Right, thanks for that, Will. Great answers. Yeah.
There's one important point which I want to go back to on the Sealander, because we've talked about the dials, we've talked about the various finishes, etc. But we didn't talk about the eye link. on the bracelet, which I think that's really impressive. Could you just explain a little bit how that came about?
Yeah, so we're always trying to improve. Well, we're trying to improve everything about the watches, but the bracelet has been something that we've been slowly improving over time. So originally, it was adding more of a taper to the bracelets. Then it was working on things like the extension, and obviously quick release has been something that we've been doing for years and years and years. And now the industry has finally caught up, and everyone has it, which is amazing because it's just so helpful. But we've always tried to find little additional things to add to the bracelets, and we moved to screwed links a couple of years ago, and that was definitely a step up from the push pins, but it never felt quite right. And yeah, we just wanted to find a toolless solution to changing the bracelet sizes. So yeah, that's kind of how that came about. Yeah, I think we're super pleased with it. We've got some really good feedback on it, and it just makes things so much easier, not having to carry tools around to change. But if you're going to Spain and all of a sudden it's
your
warm
wrist is swelling up
and your bracelet doesn't fit anymore.
You know, the worst thing, like one thing is it's great that you can just do that on the fly. But the other part is, I don't know which I fear most, because with a push pin, like the tool which you use always bends sometimes unless it's really good quality. But the worst thing with a screwdriver is one slip and you've got like a nice new carve on the side of the bracelet. So by just eliminating all of that, your bracelet's less prone to being scratched up all over on the sides.
It's not just you, because I would do the exact same thing. So I would always take it to Declan in the showroom in Maidenhead to do mine, because he is so good at it. He does it all the time. I'm like, I'm going to trust you with this. Yeah. You take it.
Yeah, I don't trust myself with doing the screws on bracelets these days.
People often, like, if I meet someone new and say, oh, I'm a watch designer, oh, you make watches? I'm like, no. You do not want a watch I have made, for sure. If I assembled it, you do not want that watch.
Right. I think that's all the time we have, Will, for. So we're going to have to wrap it up. So, Andy, do you want to see us out the show?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Will. It's been insightful. I feel like we have a part 2 definitely in the future. But thank you for all of the insights. Congratulations with the new generation of the Sealander. I hopefully get hands-on with it very soon, but from the images, I've been really impressed, and from Palm's feedback and yourself, it sounds great. So I'll do the classic sign-off. It is hasta luego and adios from Barcelona from my side. And make sure to check out the show notes as well, where you can see these great watches over at www.chronopassion7, as in the number 7.com.
And as Andy says, farewell from Barcelona in Spain. Will, is there anything you want to say to the listeners before you go?
Just make sure you don't go without seeing a Christopher Ward.
Don't be Andy.
Just simple. Don't be Andy. Yeah.
Right, thanks for that. And as Will says, farewell from London. You're in London or Maidenhead?
I'm in Scotland at the moment, actually.
Scotland, are you? Okay. Well, as Will says, farewell from Scotland, where I didn't know Christopher Ward were, but they're not, obviously, because he's just not at work. You have been listening to Chrono Passion 7 on the CP7 podcast. And from London, it's Toodle Pip and laters. And we'll see you, and you'll hear us in the next one.